patience been a virtue. Get it, we gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore. That's why we step by step it.
Welcome back to another episode of Bellamy Backstage. Today, we are blessed in the presence with my man, Will Somerville, business owner of Social House Cafe. Welcome to the show, man. Happy to have you.
Thank you guys for having me.
No doubt. So definitely start out by telling us, how did you even get into becoming a business owner?
That story is a long story. If I can simplify it, it would be, actually didn't even have my first cup of coffee until I was 20 years old. And I'm 29 now. So it was 4 years before I opened the company, yeah. The way I can simplify it is basically fitness. I got really into fitness, and there was low carbs in coffee. There's no sugar. You're just drinking black. I lived in Miami at this time. I was working out a ton, and I was using pre-workouts. And one day I ran out of pre-workout, and there was instant coffee that one of my roommates had in there, and I drank it, and it was like crack. I was
That's how it starts.
I was at the gym doing pull-ups I'd never done before, and I was like, oh wow, this is what I've been missing out on my whole life. Everything from just being more productive to just being really in the gym and focused there was what really got me addicted to it. And I don't really get addicted to things. I don't smoke, I don't really drink that heavy. So for that to get me addicted, I was like, wow. Prior to that, in high school and stuff, I went to school for accounting, college accounting in high school. And then after, I did go to Suffolk, which is in Long Island. And I did tax accounting. So to own my own business at some point and just kind of know how to do my own bookkeeping, get good at numbers. It was always kind of with that in the back of my mind. I couldn't see myself doing something so boring for somebody else, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I just didn't know what it would be. And during, in high school, my first job was McDonald's. So I already was getting that customer experience of just speaking to people from all walks of life, getting cursed at, fries thrown at you, and that got me going, learning, how to deal with people. And then I feel as a business owner, you have to know you have to be a little bit good at every single category,
Your business is starting out.
Yeah. So that was a whole scary process too. But I feel all those things ended up playing a part when I was finishing college in Miami for my 4-year degree. Attempting to. That's when I started drinking coffee. I ended up not going to Miami and using that money that I was going to put into college there, not going to Miami FIU, to be more clear, and using that money to open up the business here down the line.
So how long in between when you first tried coffee for the first time ever, so now you're 20 years old, until you had your first coffee shop open, how long was that distance?
3 years before I started the process of setting up the LLC and everything like that. 4 years before opening. I opened it up at 24 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I started drinking coffee at 20, so about 4 years.
So it was right before the pandemic.
Yeah. We opened 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wild.
We're definitely going to touch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably one of the scariest times in my life.
And you said that it took a full year process to open up. This is a physical retail, you have to have a shop. What was the process like? Where did you start the LLC, then moving on and actually negotiating leases, finding areas, doing the research of there's too many coffee shops already around? How did all that go down?
So originally I wanted to, at this time when I moved back from Miami to New York, I was living in Long Island, and I was basically doing analytics, looking at what neighborhoods would be the best, which places had the most people, stuff like that, least amount of Starbucks and stuff. Because out there, it's very fast food style versus the city where it's more small business style.
I see, right?
Yeah.
And, I'm originally from Brooklyn, so I do have my family lives here. So I did have access to moving here, which is what I ended up doing, and then opening up one here just because of the population base. It made the risk a lot less versus opening up in Long Island where the population's so sporadic.
True.
Yeah.
But yeah, so pretty much that process was about a year. I'd say a little less than a year of getting everything to go. I did it for my birthday. My birthday's June 30th. So on my birthday, I did, I set up my LLC. That was my gift for myself. And then I kind of like looked all over in Long Island for places. And yeah, they was cheaper, but I just felt like they weren't going to work. And then I found a couple places in New York, and I started making trips in to see them. And then I found the spot that I'm at now. And I really, really liked it because, when you walk in the middle of the street, that area, you can see like the Freedom Tower. I'm big into skylines and stuff like that. So I was like,
Yep.
if I'm going to be like stuck someplace, if it takes a long time to work out, I want to be stuck here. And it was such like a vibrant neighborhood too. Like everybody's young, they're around their age, they're hustlers, they go for what they want. They all have their own businesses. So I'd rather be like in a space like that where like I can evolve versus maybe a more heavier foot trafficked area like DeKalb, like where the Barclays Center is. But everything's so commercialized, like you're not really going to grow. You're just going to be making a ton of money, I guess, from all the people walking past, But the lease with my landlord, that took about 3 months to really figure out. And it was very lopsided in his favor because it was just me under the company. I got kind of lucky because he's such a big real estate guy and based in like where Times Square is, like they have a ton of buildings and stuff that I feel like their risk was so minimal. So he was just like kind of like, they just give this guy a shot. And if he fails, we'll like take his mom's house or something.
Wait, I don't know. Did you sign anything over to him? Like what was the
I had to. So generally like when you get a lease, it's similar to like an apartment. It's like two months security. For him, I had to do like 6 months security up front.
Oh, wow.
And
that was a 5-year lease?
10. So we're at the 5 years now. So we're like halfway through. So I took like a big gamble on myself. But and like my parents, my family, they were supportive in some ways, but for the most part, they were kind of against it because they were like heavy risk, like, and I get that. But I always told myself like I'd rather do it now before I have a family versus do it after I have a family and then like kind of regret it. Or if it doesn't work, let's say after I have a family, I put my whole family at risk. Right. I'd rather do it now where I can sleep on a couch.
That makes sense. Actually, so that touches on something I wanted to ask you in terms of like, how early on did you know you wanted to be a business owner?
Really early. I know this is cliche, like everybody says this, but I'd say since I was like a kid, like seriously, I never really seen myself just like being at a job I love so much, like forever. Like I don't know. It wasn't even the part about working hard. Like I don't look at like owning a business as it's going to be easier. I just rather be doing it for myself.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
It's probably a lot harder. You have to worry about your health insurance and all these other things and like figuring those things out. Where if you just get a 9-to-5 job that pays you like $80,000 a year, you can live very comfortably. But
did you have like anyone growing up that had their own business that you looked at like, oh, that's inspiring. Like I want to follow something in their footsteps like that?
Well, I would say kind of like my dad owned when I was a kid. Like my family calls me Scotty, right? So it's my middle name. So my dad had a bus chartering company in Brooklyn where he named it Scotty's Charters, like Little Scotty's Charters, which is based after me. Like as a kid, it failed for his own reasons. Like he got like my uncles is driving the truck and they're not wrapped too tight, so it just ended up failing. Just a bunch of Italian guys driving people on bus routes. But I kind of seen like the mistakes he made, like obviously getting family involved, things like that, and other things. Just, he was young, a little bit immature. I feel like I'm not like that even at 24 years old. Yeah. That I kind of learned from him. Like I was like, I'm not gonna make that mistake, but I do want to open my own business in that sense.
But that's super interesting because you said that you went to school for accounting with the intention of owning your own business. So like out the gate, you're like, I'm going to do something for myself.
No, I sort of got like I can remember being in classes in high school where I was like specific. I don't know if it was like business or accounting, like what class specifically. I just remember thinking like, oh, let me note this down because I'm going to need this one day because I just know like I'm going to do something. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to do something whenever I find whatever it is. It just really it didn't reach me yet. Mm-hmm. And then, it kind of just happened like on its own, it just kind of like grew towards that.
Yeah, I find that part so interesting because even for myself with Bellamy and creating a brand, like it wasn't something that I knew I want to create a clothing brand right out the gate. It kind of just found me in a way. So you kind of touched on it earlier when you were talking about working out and you tried this coffee and it was kind of like, oh, I love that. But can you touch a little bit more in terms of, because you could have went into working out, you could have been a gym,
like a fitness, you
could have done a fitness thing. So what was it about like coffee route that you felt like, yo, this is where I want to go with this?
I feel like, I realized I don't think I had the genetics for the fitness thing, right? But that was the first thing. But then the second thing, all right. So around that time when I was living in Miami, my mom's sisters, they still live in Italy, and they were getting married. Right, both of them actually. They're sisters. They married brothers. Weird thing, but but not their brothers, somebody else's brothers. It's like a weird thing that they had going on. But we ended up going out there to Italy, and I see my grandfather, and I have only seen him a couple times in my life because he got deported when I was younger. So when I went to Italy, and I was like trying to do basically jail workouts there because they don't have gyms. And I was explaining to him the instant coffee. I was asking for instant coffee, and like he was ripping it to me. He's like, "You need to try espresso." That's what really got me hooked.
The espresso?
This is probably like when I was like 21 or 22. When this process happened. And yeah, so we ended up, he giving me espresso, and then I just had an even crazier workout. And I was like, oh, and I got lucky. I was like, you know what? I want to learn more about this because they just had their own like
European espresso. It's like
crazy. It's like such a thing. And I got to experience it. So like they gave me like a little moped to drive around in, and we would go to like little espresso shops everywhere we would go. Like in the mountains, there would be like little espresso like shops and stuff, and they would stop, do a quick one, and obviously I'm adding a bunch of milk and sugar at that time, and I was just like, wow, this is such a culture that I want to learn more about. And then when I got back to Miami, I got a job at like a Cuban cafe and Starbucks, so it was like part-time for both while I was like waiting to get accepted into the school. I was accepted, but I was waiting to get my residency. So that's pretty much like that
Just felt like it. All right, gotcha. That makes sense.
And I know that a little while back we were talking about like your school experience, and you're like, oh, you didn't finish. So you was like, I'm done with the whole school track. I know I want to be a business owner. Like, I'm going right in on this.
Yeah. So what really pushed me to do it was when I was living in Long Island right before I moved to Miami. I went to Suffolk. I graduated with my associates, and then I wanted to finish my 4-year degree. It was in accounting, and I think I minored in business. And I wanted to finish in a warmer place. Like I wanted to enjoy at least the first 2 years of, the last 2 years of college. I felt the first 2 years was like second high school. Everybody I went to high school with was kind of there.
Yep.
And it was cold, and they had me walking from the parking lot like 10 miles to my class because it's like really spread out. Not literally 10 miles, but it was bad. So I was like, I really want to go someplace warm. And it was like, Miami was just like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in Miami. So me, my friend, and somebody I was talking to at the time, we ended up getting like an apartment down there, moving down there. And I was already accepted into FIU, but the what is it called? The tuition was very high, like super high. And it was like, and then they also compare it to people who live in Florida. Like they show you it, like both categories. And I was like, how long does it take to become a resident here? Because I'd rather just only pay $2,000 versus paying like $40,000. So I have an older cousin that is in so much debt that, went to college all the years, very smart, got some like scholarships and stuff, and you end up paying like $100,000. I'd rather not, So, because I knew at some point I wanted to have some sort of equity to like buy something or like get into a business or whatever the case is. I didn't want to put myself at a disadvantage, right? So I was like, I'm going to enjoy this year in Miami, get myself settled, get a job, all that stuff, get used to living here, and then go into it on my second year being here, get my residency. This time I was like 20 years old or 21 because I had to be going to the bars. So I enjoyed my stay there. I enjoyed every moment. But I will say that after a year of being there, I got my residency, I had my license, everything like ready for the residency. And when I gave it to the school, they denied it because I was under 24 years old. So there's some like rule, I think Obama passed it, where if you're under your parents' health insurance, even though you're like totally like not reliant on them, then you can't get like the in-state tuition or whatever that case is. So pretty much wasted a whole year. And then I was like, you know what? I already know I can get accepted for this amount of money. I might as well. I think it was like almost like $50,000 a year. It was like $100,000 in total. I was like, I have the choice of either just paying that $50,000 and finishing the 2 years, or just take that and just start working on a business plan and open up my own. And that's what I did. I just was like, you know what? I didn't use that exact loan, but I knew I could get accepted for it. My credit was good and all that other stuff. So I pretty much like just pivoted and was like, all right, I'm gonna start working on getting back to New York in about a year because my lease still had another year on it. And I saved as much as I could. I worked for a tax place at H&R Block. So I got familiar with that. And then kind of just started like taking little steps to when I moved back to New York, and then really like taking it from there. And also I felt like I had more people that could help me out, like construction wise and confidence in New York versus in Miami where I didn't know nobody.
So little steps being you're researching the areas, you're researching types of businesses, or at that point in time, did you know that it was going to be coffee?
Oh, I knew it was gonna be coffee. As I was like getting more and more like addicted to it, I was like, oh, actually, when I was in Miami, I was attempting to open up a gelato shop,
Okay.
and then I couldn't get like it was just so many issues with it, like with the health department and stuff like that down there, that I was like, and then I really thought about it. I was like, no, this is a stupid idea. I mean, gelato is amazing, but like it's not something people are addicted to that like you're gonna really like make a killing out of, or just you know, just be successful in. It's probably gonna be very limited your success. So. Then at the same time, I was getting addicted to coffee, and it was like, oh.
But like, how much upfront capital should be expected of somebody to have for a physical location? You're signing a 10-year deal,
Right.
You have to pay 6 months up front. Then you have all the capital expenditures for the actual espresso machines, and the ones that you have in there, I saw they're massive. Like,
Yeah,
those
right.
cannot be cheap. You mentioned that you had like a business loan that you were going through. Like, how much was it self-funding through savings? How much was it through like business loans that you had lined up?
Well, that's a good question. So I'd say I tried to go to the SBA, the Small Business Association in Long Island, to try to get a small business loan, and they kind of wouldn't do it. They respected everything about everything I put into the business plan, but they were like, you don't have anything. Like, let's say you start on like a food truck or a coffee truck. You have some sort of like already basis knowledge of business.
And you're 24 at this time.
And I'm 24, and they're kind of like,
they're looking at you.
Yeah, a little crazy. And I remember I was like, when I left there, I was a little hurt, but I was like, you can't really expect that. I wouldn't give it to me at 24. So
I wouldn't give it to myself at 24. So
my dad was like, "Don't look at me, I don't got it." That type of thing at that time. So what I did was I didn't really have any debt at all on my credit cards or anything like that. I did save not a decent amount, but for myself at that age, I was like, had like 15, 20 grand put away. So it's like, okay, that'll be like for the rent to hold me over, and then I put the rest on credit. And that's pretty much what I did. Put the rest on all my credit cards, maxed everything out, personal credits. Because kind of you have to do that in the beginning of a majority of businesses, because where does the income, like where does the initial investment come from? It comes from you, or I didn't have investors, During COVID, my dad helped out definitely. Like, we couldn't even get deliveries to the store because none of the delivery drivers were coming. He would make the deliveries from like going to like Restaurant Depot. He was also not working, so he was like, I love driving trucks. So he's like, I'll drive down there. We bought a van, and he would just pick everything up, drop it off at the store, because we started doing food at that time.
Wow.
So he helped in like those sorts of ways too. And then with the lease, I had to come up with 6 months like rent up front, which was a tough thing. I ended up figuring it out, did it. And then after that, we started like the construction. Good thing is, my dad has like 2 or 3 of my uncles that he works with that they've been working like their whole lives together. They're very like good at these types of things. So I got to lean on that relationship there to help me build out the interior of the store. But I try to do it very efficient because I didn't have like endless money to put in. But definitely the espresso machine costs more than everything. Like, I think like the setting up the bar area was a couple $1,000. The chairs and stuff was cheap, and it just, I guess, trying to make it as nice as possible with the most limited amount of input as possible is the way I kind of went to it.
Yeah.
For our landlord, he was more of like on the fence. So this came about in COVID. My lawyer warned me prior to signing the lease, like, hey, it's very top heavy. It's just leaning very much to the landlord. Even just the security deposit, 6 months is like insane. Like, it's actually illegal for like residential, but commercial it's legal. So he was like, I advise you to sign it. And I just really, I was a little stupid. You got to be a little stupid to do it. So you got to be a little stupid.
Fair enough. I was going to ask you about that. Like, in terms of advice you giving other guys that are listening or other people listening to your story, like, what does it take? Because it sounds like you've been focused from the very beginning, but of course, like anything, there's hurdles that you got to jump and you got to overcome. And launching it around COVID, that's got to be one of the biggest hurdles ever, right? So what kind of resilience or what kind of advice can you give people that are thinking about potentially doing something like this?
I'd say if you're going to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, don't worry about don't like count yourself out just because you're not extremely good at one thing. Like, you have to be just decently good at a bunch of things, right? Numbers, you need to have an understanding. You can be like the best latte maker in the world, but you just don't understand numbers, and it just doesn't make sense. Your business fails, right? So you need to have like, you need to be methodical, like about every decision. You need to understand the whole business and the domino effects of every decision, because you're looking at everything. So you hire one bad worker, let's say, and you don't you're like, oh, they're not that bad, and they're a nice person. Let's say like they're just giving customers attitude. Then you slowly start losing those customers one by one, and you don't realize, okay, it's just that one customer. But then they go home and they tell the other guy. So it's like you need to look at everything. You have to have like a top-down and macroeconomics view of everything. And then also microeconomics too, to an extent. So you have to have like a little bit of everything. But then like I don't want to sit here and say I'm good at every single thing because I'm not. Like communications, I'm not that good at. I've never took any classes on like speaking or anything like that. I never was good at construction. I couldn't even put a shelf up prior to owning the store. Now I feel like I'm more comfortable. I felt myself as a homeowner or something now because I've had to do so much stuff by myself. Yeah. And so I feel like you just have to be good at like a lot of things, or at least teach yourself to be decent at a lot of things. And it has to make sense. Like,
yeah. So actually, along the lines of like microeconomics, macroeconomics. So at some point in time, while you're researching opening up a coffee shop, you had to know, okay, here's my rent, here's my upfront costs, here's my monthly bills. How many units of coffee do I have to move? How much food and all of the margin that comes with that, and then how many employees do I need? So when did you start kind of putting that equation together, and when did it make sense for you to be like, okay, I'm comfortable with these numbers, I'm ready to pull the trigger?
I would say I got in kind of at a good time because it was right before COVID. So the rent wasn't like extremely high for that neighborhood because the neighborhood is blowing up, right? So I got in at a good time, even though at that time I thought it was a bad time, right? But I got in at a good time, and also it wasn't that far off than what my rent was in Miami. And something I didn't mention prior was when I was living in Miami, I rented out the rooms in my apartment. So to kind of cover the rent. So I really didn't have that much overhead. So I was already kind of doing that in a way, like basing the Airbnb now. Like, okay. You know what I'm saying? But with friends and stuff that would visit, I'm like, dude, why don't you like live out here for a couple months and like I'll charge you this much, and then they would, and stuff like that. It wasn't to random people; it was people I knew that lived here in New York. So I'd say that like that process happened in Miami, and then slowly trickled to when I owned the store. And when I had when I had to make the rent for this store, I wasn't so scared because I'm like, all right, it's not that far off. Like, worst thing comes to worst, I just land a really good job and I can just cover it. You come up with this worst like case scenario, which is why the store is kind of small. I wish it was bigger. I'm sure now I can probably work something out to try to get it bigger at some point or get a bigger location, because now I feel like I have like the framework for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, given everything you've been through, is there a moment that you look back on and that you can remember feeling like, man, like this was like all worth it, man. I'm so glad that I stuck through with this, and anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. And the opposite too. But I feel like after COVID, like the second time, I remember like driving to the store and it was like finally starting to run on its own, right? Because my business plan in the beginning kind of was like, all right, I put this amount in, it's top heavy. You have to put all the initial investment and make it up over time. We spoke about that, right? I was like, I worked in fast food when I was younger, so I'm a fast worker. I can like get everything down, right? So it's like I will make up for it myself the first year. I'll put my like head on straight and just like make up for it myself with like one or two helpers versus like getting a huge staff and make it up that way. And then I got hit with COVID, so that really didn't work out too well. But during COVID, it made me have no choice but to learn it entirely by myself. Like I literally had to run the store entirely by myself for a year because I was competing with the government agencies for like, wages pretty much. Nobody wanted to work.
Oh, right. Because,
So I pretty much had to do it. And that allowed me to make back so much lost revenue that happened during COVID and make a cushion. It was just like that hard work for like 1 year. So to answer your question, when I was one day, I just remember driving down like to my store and outdoor seating, and it was like packed, and like nobody bothered me that whole morning. Like, none of my managers called me once, and I was like listening to Drake, just like I'm just like driving down, and Money to the Grave is on, and I'm just kidding. And I just see like the store's packed and it's operating properly, and I was like, wow, like okay, this is what it feels like to finally like have this place running. Because I did put in prior to that so many hours of just like making adjustments and fixing pricing, and we didn't plan on doing food, and we got really good at doing food.
Yeah,
the food is I can attest to that as well.
I want to do more of like it grew from coffee. It's now it's like a bar now at night and stuff. So it's like we're trying to infuse these two models of coffee and also with bar stuff.
And before we get too far away from the other side, like how many times have you had like the thought processes of like, oh, is this gonna make it?
Yep.
During COVID.
I mean, I can only imagine.
During
Yeah.
COVID, I remember I was in the store. It was like at night. I'm just like trying to keep the doors open as long as possible and sell whatever I could because like it was like illegal to sell something inside of a place. And I just remember the health department coming in like a couple times. It was like, dude, we're gonna like lock you up, close the door. Like, swear to God, like that's like, word for word. You cannot be open right now. And I'm like, nobody's even in here. They're just grabbing and go. They're like closed. It was like the worst part of it. And we're in Williamsburg, so it was even more aggravated. Like the community's feedback. I guess somebody in the building called. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that's what happened a few times. So I'd say like that time. After that, I remember like sitting back. I'm like, wow, I just like put everything on credit cards.
Yeah.
And like I'm not even allowed to make money right now. And I remember, that period of time, I was like, damn, I don't think this is gonna work.
And granted, your like backup plan was, I'm gonna go get a job just to cover the difference. But now we're in COVID, like nobody's hiring.
Right.
Like
right.
so that backup option wasn't even a plan. So it was like you got off the ships are burned behind you. You have to just figure it out while you were there.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that during that time, whenever you couldn't sell anything, were you operating at a loss during that time?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you're just covering the difference on credit cards.
Yeah. I actually didn't even pay the landlord. Like he was just sending us letters every month, and I'm like, dude,
Oh, wow.
I wish I could pay you. You think I want to not pay you, but I can't. Like I literally am not even allowed to sell what I'm here to sell for. So it's like a very weird, murky area because he's like, he understands, but at the same time, he's like, I gotta pay my
he still has his own bills to pay.
So yeah, it was a tricky time. I'd say that I thought I was gonna fail probably like 6 months in. Like I thought that I was like, all right, we're gonna have to like close the door. Like I was like, remember Googling like bankruptcy things.
Oh my God.
Then that looked like harder than actually closing the doors. It was like the bankruptcy process. I'm like, oh, whoa, it's not as easy as it sounds. Like just,
and it's not just the business bankruptcy. I mean, you're putting this on your personal.
Sorry, yeah,
like,
but that was part of something that I knew the risk because when I first was like coming up with the idea, I was like, I'm young enough where if it fails, I can like make it up by the time I'm 30 and reset. As to if I'm like 35 and it fails, I'm like, all right, well, maybe 50 and like figure out a different way. Right. So I kind of was like already comfortable with that like scenario. But it ended up working out. Like it ended up just working out. Also, we're not entitled to any PPP loans, any grants or anything like that because it wasn't open long enough. So I applied for all of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so like that was the other thing. I'm like,
literally like everything, man.
They're like, you have no books yet. There was only 3 weeks of books. Like, right, you needed 6 months was the minimum just to even apply. So I was just getting denied at the application. And I just remember like, damn. Well, yeah.
wow.
I grew up with my parents both having their own businesses. My mom, she was more so into curtains and upholstery and stuff like that. My dad is on the medical side, so he has his own practice. But I could say that growing up, I didn't have like this obsession to have my own business. I just knew that I didn't want to sacrifice my own dreams for someone else's.
Yeah.
That was my biggest thing. And so hearing your story and like how committed you were from the beginning and all of these hurdles you had to go through, like where do you get this confidence from? Like where do you feel like I was meant to do this and it doesn't matter what's going to come through, I'll find a way? Where does that come from?
I'd say like I always like to just even growing up too, I always like to just like dive into things, like just anything. I just would dive in and like deal with the repercussions later. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it just comes from like experiencing things slowly over time and like overcoming them, and you build that confidence. Yeah, I'd say if your dad's a doctor, he has his own like party.
Yeah,
that's probably a really hard thing too because you're going through all this school.
Yeah, I mean it's I do think it takes a certain type of person though because he's doing well, but he's a doctor first, not a businessman, right? So like there are certain things that come to him not as naturally, and it's not as easy. It's an adjustment. But I think, again, the most successful business owners that I've come across share what you have, which is like this relentless dog. And it's like, It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. If I got to max out my credit cards to do it, I'm going to do it knowing that I can rely on myself down the road. So it's something that I truly respect. And I don't come across many people that share that same sentiment.
And I feel like that's probably why a lot of people don't start their own business, like, because it's scary and it's like, obviously, any type of business that you're opening up is scary, right? Especially when you're putting yourself on the line for it. I'd say that, like, once you throw yourself into something that you're really passionate about, it can't just be something really stupid, but you throw something in that you're really passionate about, you're going to figure out a way because you want it, right? They said, I remember when I went to SBA, they were like, oh, well, 95% of like restaurants fail in their first year, right? And I don't want to be like, oh, but like, my espresso's better than all these other people's espressos. It's like, no, but like, I'm sure that person was really good at making lattes and really probably couldn't like make his credit card payment. You know what I'm saying? Because he just didn't understand how numbers work. He didn't understand the full picture of like the process of like just talking to customers. Like there's something that was missing for those people. And then a lot of the companies people open is just a front because they're probably drug dealers. So like I think that I seriously think that that's something I learned in New York. Like a lot of the companies here, like I would look at like there's no way these people are making the rent, like this rent. Like it's just like I would look at it and I'm like it's got to be a front. Like you can just kind of tell once you really do it honestly and you're opening up your own business and you see the payroll expenses, the taxes, the rent, the electric, that all these bills come in, and then you're really getting a figure like there's no way this guy has a yacht and he has like 2 little restaurants and like like it just doesn't really make sense. And then you're like, oh well, they're from this part of the world. You're like, they're probably like you kind of just start putting that together. I do think that number plays part in that percentage of failed businesses. A lot of LLCs are just fronts for whatever or write-off deductions. They just open it up. Like, let's say somebody's like really successful in something like, I don't know, and then they just open up LLCs or restaurants. They know we're going to fail, but they can write everything off and put their family members in place.
Well, tax fraud section of the show is later.
Yeah. I get into that, dude. I get into that, man. But, I feel like a lot of people don't have that in them to really just take that risk unless they just like suck it up and just jump in. I feel like that's probably the best opportunity. Just do it.
Just do it.
It's going to happen. You need to like take into account the worst possible like outcome and then the best. You're going to end up somewhere in between, right? You're like, I didn't open up the store and look at it and be like, I'm going to have that yacht and I'm going to be next to McConnor. Like it's just not going to happen with that. Yeah, maybe down the line as you grow, but you're going to end up somewhere in between.
Yeah,
and I feel like the law of averages work very well. Definitely work very well.
I mean, the law of averages would have suggested that there's a 95% chance that you would fail.
Yeah, so. That is true. That is true. That is true.
But so where is it? What's the next step? Where is it?
Yeah, what's next here? What's next for you guys?
Same as you guys, because like I said before, I want you guys to start creating your own like cologne. Seriously, because it's such like an elegant style. It's such an elegant logo that I can just imagine it popped on like a really personally designed cologne bottle, and there's something that smells really good that would go on like perfect with this. I would say like
noted.
No, seriously, I'm gonna get into why I'm saying that. I started with just coffee and pastries, right? Mm-hmm. And then now we do food, and now we do cocktails at night, espresso martinis, probably some of the best.
Don't tell my what.
But like you just slowly, as you're growing the business, you want to touch into all these, like everything that the customer wants, right? So this works for some people and some people it doesn't. But I feel like your brand, because it's similar, it's like this elevated, like clothing brand. I feel like that would go very well for you guys as you grow. Obviously, maybe you can do it right now, but as you go down the line, and you have the style already. You have the design already. I think that you should take the same route that we took and just start like going from there. Yeah. I'd say now that I got good at food and now that I got good at alcohol and the coffee portion and also understanding how to run a business, I wanted to get the blueprint. I do want to copy and paste it, but in a bigger space. A bigger space. I feel like that's the only thing that kind of held us back was the size of the space. So I do want to get into a bigger space. And then maybe open up a bunch of little ones. I do think I'm going to need investment from an outside source to do that, to open up a bunch of other stores in specific areas that align with their brand, right? Greenpoint, Williamsburg, I'd say Bushwick is on like the list because it's up and coming. Bay Ridge, I live by Bay Ridge, and I feel like that's like starting to take off too. Just New York in general, like Brooklyn specifically, is starting to like really blow up. I want to get into all these markets. So yeah, I think that's something I want to do. And then if you take me to Brooklyn Mirage, maybe we'll open up a club. You promised me that.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah. Then we open up a club. It could be like,
I mean, bro, if you're doing liquor sales now, you're already partially like a little bar. I mean, you said you have restrictions until 11 o'clock, and you can only sell
we can't go past 11.
But that's not a far jump to open up a little bar next.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to any like businesses or like, for example, the banks, maybe not necessarily an investment from an outside person, but like an objective opinion, like a bank, for you to be like, okay, I want a second location. Have you spoken to see like, this is what you need in terms of cash flow or, amount of cash on hand in order to push into the next location?
Yeah, I actually did. I spoke to a few banks. I feel like because we're an LLC, we have to change the structure. Probably this year we're going to do it. Because you're limited to the amount like that you can like borrow against to jump into, like, let's say I wanted to do something like really cool, like I don't know, like a really big space. I'd be limited to the amount that like we can really borrow against. But if you're a corporation, it's different. Like the limits are a lot higher. So I need to change the structure because I'm the only member. So I think I have to open up a little bit and just kind of maybe expand in that portion. Try to get some investors that buy into the company, and then kind of use those funds to grow into like a bigger space.
That's pretty cool, man. I mean, like as one of our final questions, I always like to ask this because with Bell, it's all about not just the success, but it's the journey that led to the success. And so just thinking a year from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you see Social House Cafe a year from now?
I really want to see us have like 2 or 3 locations. I want to grow, but at a pace that's like we can keep the quality, Yeah. I don't want to do like get this like huge cash injection from whatever investment firm, and then like we're popping up a bunch of failing shops, Yeah. So I really want to like, we're in Williamsburg. I want to like bounce around in Williamsburg, get another good space. We're bringing points in place really close. I'd say that I want to have like 3 by the end of the year, 2025, like going into 2026. I want to have 3, and I want to do it efficiently. I want to do it like correctly and like prove to myself that like the mistakes I made the first time, like I learned from every single mistake. I haven't done so perfectly that happens,
Yeah, totally.
So I definitely feel like I've watched myself make so many mistakes, and I'm the one paying for it. Like I've had employees say like, hey, like, maybe you don't listen to what I'm saying here. I'm like, I don't need to listen because once the negative impact hits me, I pay for it. Like it comes out of the company, So I've noted every single thing that like if I try something that doesn't work and I lose a lot of money on it, like not going to do that again. Right. At this point, it was smart for me to be risky in the beginning, but now for me to be too risky now it would be stupid because you could lose it all very fast.
Very fast.
So I want to like keep that in the back of my mind and just make a very methodical, efficient decision on like what neighborhood and if it's going to work there, and as to just being like, oh my God, this place is bigger. But like, what good is it being bigger when it's
One question I wanted to ask was about like employee.
Yeah.
Because you're, 24, 25 at this time, and you're hiring people that are around your same age, maybe even a little bit older. Were you bringing in people, it's like, okay, I know you can do a good job, or were you bringing in just anybody? Just putting an ad in a newspaper, like how'd you find it?
Yeah, it was like Instagram. We did some posts, and we got really lucky. A guy, he's still with me, and two of them that are still with me. So they've been with me about 4.5 years now. It was like right after COVID. The first guy's name's John. He's the one that came up with our house sauce that we did for the food, and pretty much told me like one day, it was like, dude, we gotta start doing it. Like these people were all asking for food because all the restaurants were closed. Yep, no, you're right. And then he helped me implement that, and we didn't do a great job in the very beginning because like I never was like a cook. But he definitely helped like learn that whole process, and he also has good customers.
So he learned.
Yeah, he's older. He's older.
But he knew, he was like, we need food for the money side of it.
Yes.
And he's not even the owner, like, or has an ownership.
I don't even think he thought about the money side. I think he just thought about like the customers like want more to go with this.
That's important. You need people like that.
Yeah. And I try to filter all the information I get. Like I try to filter and be like, okay, not all like advice is good advice, right? So like that I thought was good advice.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do food. But then we did it, and I was like, whoa, we actually did a really good job. We did a product, like way better than I thought we could do. And then we cultivated this menu that ended up working out very, very well, and I got pretty lucky there. And then a little bit down the line, we hired Alex, who's the manager now, and he has like a great customer service portion and does really good photography and editing and stuff like that. So we actually don't have like a company that we pay at the photography. He does it, and he does it. He loves it. Like he wants to be an interior designer, right? So he does it, and if I didn't get those 2 people, and those are good experiences. Though you can have bad experiences too, where it works against.
And the interior design at your spot is good because matter of fact, how we know each other is we saw your spot, saw the interior, we're like, we want to do a Bellamy photo shoot there.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The brands are kind of aligned, and in some sense, you have to do your own wine too.
It's your own wine?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just
Valentine's Day, before Valentine's Day, you got it.
We do want to be a lifestyle brand.
And trust me, these ideas are all things that we've talked about. It's stuff we've written down. But like you said, there's a methodical approach to it. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. Like, if we can get to that place where we can make those things happen, like, why not?
Okay. We would host you guys. In the store, definitely.
Yeah.
Like top shelf. That wine would be so on brand. Just having this comment.
Yeah, and also as a matter of fact, like as you say that you're expanding in a bigger space, I would love to do like a launch party there or something.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing that we started to do. I started looking at the hours we were open, and Monday through Wednesday we're not really open that late. So I would be like, what can we do? So we went on Gigs there and all these other beer space and tag venue and all these other spaces, and we allow people to do photo shoots, short films, birthday parties, and the event portion actually opened up another realm of income that could help pay for losses, toilet breaks or sink clogged or something, and it costs thousands of dollars to get it fixed. Those will make it up, just to be diversified as much as I could in that one space,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
God, I love just getting so creative with it.
Yeah.
Like little income streams on the side. And New York City is a great place to do that because everybody's got a little side hustle that they're also doing.
Yep.
But they're like, oh, I need a little space here and there. And you mentioned like a bunch of different like little platforms. Like, how did that even come about?
there was another company that had like a business meeting in my store. It was like a restaurant a couple blocks down, and they were talking about like they didn't expect to make so much money doing private events, doing something, and I was like, I heard the number. I said, "You made the how much?" And then after that, I was like, all right, I got to diversify. That would be a great route because, like you said, the interior was done very well. Even though it's small, I was like, people would love to have their birthday party here. And with our hospitality that we really, because I work there like during the week, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And Alex is there during the week. But that hospitality on top of, the customers coming in for these events,
yeah,
it would make for like really good experiences. We get good reviews and go from there.
100%, man. This has been an awesome conversation, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out, sharing your journey, how you got to this point. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
This has been, like I said, you were our first business owner that we've talked to. And so just hearing your insight in terms of how you captured the market has been fascinating. And bro, I can speak for myself, but I'm sure Yev will agree. We're rooting for you, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You do. I know you do.
No, thanks again for joining us, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks.
Patience been a virtue, get it, we gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore, that's why we step by step it.